for your direction of the ceremony so far. I'm pleasantly surprised to see you, Father Amchisoon. How are you? I have to specially acknowledge you. And I'm sure Minister Purnell Charles would not mind that I acknowledge you before him. And you will allow me a little bit of rivalry to acknowledge my, as we say in Jamaica, parishioner or parishioner, whichever one suits. As a Catholic priest, you will understand the term parishioner, but we have coined it for our own purposes, meaning that we are from the same parish. And my good friend who went to St. Jago High School, and we crossed paths a few times. He has some delusions, but I'm sure we will find a way to get to what the truth was. I'm happy to finally meet the new conservator of Forests and the CEO of the Forestry Department. Another St. Jago man, Ainsley Henry. Welcome and congratulations on your new post, and indeed to the quite effective staff of the Forestry Department. Ms. Sharon Dale, Chairman of the St. Catherine High School Board, and our principal, Mr. Marlon Campbell, and he has been doing very well as principal. School has been performing exceptionally well. Ms. Kerry Ann White, President of the Alumni Association for St. Catherine High School, members of the Alumni Association who are present, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen, having gone through the official protocols, you will understand when I say all other protocols have been observed. And I'm speaking now of the protocols for the management of the COVID-19 pandemic. I am not going to attempt to count the number of persons in this foyer. I am going to assume that it is no more than 30, excluding, of course, the members of the press who are generally exempted. But I know that in the planning of this event, all the event planners made sure that the protocols were observed. And I have to say this because at every forum that I speak, every platform on which I stand to deliver a message, there is a critical eye of the society looking on. And generally it is so, and we are not in any way complaining about criticism. In fact, what we're trying to do is to acknowledge that the society in which we live in is searching for justice. And they want to be sure that we who are the ones that have the handle on how policies are developed, laws are made, and justice dispensed, that we are also putting ourselves under the rule of law. So we're not making one law for one set of Jamaicans and one law for the other set of Jamaicans. It's one law for everyone. And I am trying my best. Very difficult, because you know, the Jamaican culture is that everyone wants an exemption, and everyone wants to feel that they are special and don't have to be beholden to the law. But, and we see this every day, we struggle with it, but we are trying our best to make sure that when we do make the laws, they are applicable for everyone. So wherever I go, the disaster risk management rules must be followed. Having said all of that and dispense with that, good morning. Do you know when is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. And do you know when is the second best time to plant a tree? Right now. So we launched the National Tree Planting Initiative in October 2019 to plant 3 million trees in Jamaica in 3 years. I thought that was quite unambitious. That should be just 1 year. But I had a little pity on the forestry department. So 3 years, 3 million trees. The objective of the initiative was to support national reforestation efforts to increase forest cover for climate change adaptation, as well as to establish high-value urban green spaces for the benefit of all Jamaicans. Training of the Hope interns in forestry management was also an objective. The program has been impacted by the pandemic, but I'm certain that the Hope interns will be re-engaged in even greater numbers, where they will learn about seedling production, tree establishment, and maintenance of trees and forest areas, and that they will take this now as part of their learning, so that they will go back into their own communities and become ambassadors for planting trees. In recognition of the strong and vibrant school spirit that we have in Jamaica, the Forestry Department launched the My Tree Legacy campaign as part of the National Tree Planting Initiative. Under the My Tree Legacy campaign, past students have an opportunity. Welcome, Minister. No, please. Under the My Tree Legacy campaign, past students have an opportunity to engage with their alma maters in a way that provides tangible and lasting benefits, not only for current students, but for future generations. Just as our forefathers did for us, we have an opportunity to leave a legacy of a cleaner, healthier environment through tree planting for future generations. The pandemic has highlighted how interconnected and interdependent we are with each other and with our natural environment. The prolonged interruption of everyday human activity as a result of the pandemic seems to have given the planet a chance to slow down a bit. The disruption of our normal patterns of production and consumption means that greenhouse emissions globally have fallen by nearly 8% compared to pre-pandemic levels. So the pandemic has not been all bad. All over the world, in fact, major cities known for their air pollution have recorded significant improvements in air quality. During this global slowdown of human activity, the planet has begun to heal. Once the pandemic has subsided, carbon emissions will no doubt, almost certainly, rise again. But what the pandemic would have taught us is that if we have to slow down, we can and survive. If we have to change the way in which we live, we can and will survive even better. It's not impossible. The world can slow greenhouse gas emissions. The world can, if it chooses to, change the way in which we all live, and we will be the better for it. So the mission to save our planet, the mission to reduce global warming, the mission to reduce the warming of our seas. It's not just some pie in the sky romanticism. It is a real and possible mission that mankind can do and should do. This is the first generation of human beings who would have the opportunity to stop climate change. First generation. You know, recently, Dr. Wheatley, I decided that I was going to do a little backyard gardening. And you are a biotechnologist, so you have a very deep and scientific understanding of these matters. And I put in a greenhouse in my backyard. And I noticed that the greenhouse was several degrees hotter on the inside than on the outside. In fact, sometimes even 7 degrees hotter. And I reflected on this consideration of being inside a protected growing space, screened around, and a plastic translucent roof, which allows in sunlight, in temperate and cold climates. It is sealed around with glass, which allows heat inside. And it traps the heat inside. And it is unbearably hot inside. And in tropical countries that try to use greenhouses, they have to find a way to cool down the greenhouse. Now, when we burn fossil fuels or emit other forms of gases that trap heat, we call them greenhouse gases, they make the world, the globe, hotter. And that change in temperature can affect so many other things in the way we live. It affects our climate. It can affect our agriculture. It certainly is causing the solar caps to melt. But more than that, the excess carbon is causing what is called the acidification of the ocean, killing many species of plant life and animal life in the ocean. Now, the fear is that if this is allowed to continue unabated, it could change the environment and our climate in irreversible ways. And therefore, it is this generation of human beings who have the greatest understanding of this potential problem. And therefore, it is this generation of human beings who should take the first tangible steps of ensuring that we do not reach the irreversible level of change in our climate by reducing the carbon emissions and other forms of gases which trap heat in the atmosphere of our planet. And that is what it is all about. That's the simple explanation of the science behind it. There are those, including persons in Jamaica, who would want to dismiss this as a non-reality or not important for the Prime Minister to speak about. It should not be an agenda for the Prime Minister. Now, I have taken up this agenda and I have been speaking globally, internationally. I've been asked by the UN and other bodies to be a voice for climate change. The reality is, of course, that a small country like Jamaica is a minuscule contributor to climate change. In fact, you know, what we contribute is negligible. And indeed, that is the case for most small island developing states. But we still have an obligation for our planet and to humanity and to future generations of human beings. And so we have to have this in our consciousness. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Now, a part of the science of correcting this warming of our planet is that we can create what is called carbon sinks. We can, as smart governments, deploy our resources to, for example, planting trees. Why? Because trees need carbon, and they give off oxygen. And so planting trees will pull from the atmosphere carbon. And so it is not just because it sounds like a very nice thing to do to plant trees. It is a very real strategic response in being a responsible government, a responsible nation, a caring nation about our planet and our atmosphere and our climate and our environment, to plant trees. 3 million trees in Jamaica is clearly not enough, but it is what our capacity presently allows. It is what we know that the forestry department can manage. And I'm happy to see that there are many partners who are assisting. Private sector organization of Jamaica is committed to planting 500,000 trees. Food for the Poor has committed 1 million fruit and timbered seedlings. The Ministry of Agriculture, as was said before, has committed to give 600,000 trees from their 5 million fruit trees that they intend to plant. The Noranda Bauxite Company is giving 200,000. And there is a private planter, Dr. Paravata Nini. Did I get it right? Paravata Nini, who has planted so far 130,000 trees. And that's just one individual. So you can see, and I want to acknowledge him, that if we all were to decide in whatever little space we have that we're going to plant some trees, that we could make a difference to this massive global problem. I want to acknowledge the St. Jago High School, Glenmuir High School, Clarendon College, Garvey Maceo, Vere Technical, Fern Court, Homewood, Knox, and the Northern Caribbean University, who have participated in this My Tree Planting initiative. And I want to encourage all schools. When I look at the campus for St. Catherine High School, I have fond memories of going to school here, but I still see you have vast spaces where you could plant more than 24 trees. So I am going to ask you to up the commitment from 24. I won't give you a number, you decide. But 24 is not enough. Right, Mr. Principal? Like 240 maybe? Somebody says that would turn our campus into a forest. Maybe. And a forest is not such a bad thing, is it? It would change your environment in meaningful ways. It would certainly calm the area. There's no question about trees and the calming effect that they have. They would cool the area. Trees in clusters do have an impact on the weather in the area. But more than that, it would make the place green. Why are you laughing? There is great contention in Jamaica about the government's approach to the environment. We have been very clear that our objective is sustainability. We start from the principle that we are stewards of the environment. The environment is in our custody, and we have to manage it not just for the benefit of the existing generation, but for generations to come. What we are clear on in our minds is that when we do not have an enlightened management of our environment and an enlightened and progressive management of our economy, whenever economies are poor, they are not in a position to take care of the economy. And you usually find that poor economies have very serious environmental challenges. There is an imbalance in the debate about the environment, because I can give you many examples about abusive fishing practices, about destruction of our mangroves, about destruction of our forests, that are the result, the root cause, lack of income, lack of knowledge, and poverty. So the government has a deep duty to ensure that it educates its people about protecting the environment, and also to provide our people with income earning opportunities, commercial opportunities that sustainably use the resources of the country. Sometimes the conversation is had in such a way as if to suggest that the government should not use the resources of the country. How else are we going to address poverty, lack of income, lack of employment? We must use our resources, but we must use them sustainably. We must use them in ways that ensure that they are not depleted and destroyed. We must use them in efficient ways. Don't use more than you need. We must have strong regulations, and we must ensure that the poor people of the country benefit from the resources when they are used. And that is what we have strived to do. And we will continue to do that. And I wanted to just point out that, others have talked about the protection of the environment. We have been very active in the protection of the environment. We have talked for many decades about protecting the cockpit country. This is the administration that acted on it. There's a dispute there as to a definition of a particular area for mining, but there is a process that is being undertaken, a process that involves the people, a process that is fair and transparent, and a process that I'm sure will lead to a result that all Jamaicans will be happy with and proud to say that I am a Jamaican that has protected and preserved our environmental and cultural assets. I say it in those coded forms, hoping that everyone will understand what I'm saying. In my budget debate, I stated that the government will be promulgating a new Protected Areas Act. This will enable the creation of regulations of a national, this will enable the creation and regulation of a national protected areas system. This national protected areas system is representative of Jamaica's biological and cultural heritage. NEPA has so far selected 15 areas which are proposed for protection. Some of these lands are under private ownership, while others are owned by various arms of the government. The law as it now stands does not make any distinction as it relates to protection of lands, whether they are privately owned or publicly held. So once an area is defined as protected, if you own it, then the rules that apply to the protection of that land applies to the land that you own. So what we have found is that there are many lands which we consider to be environmental assets, or they may have cultural and heritage assets on them. They are privately held. They are protected. They cannot be used. And it does create a conflict because private owners want to use their lands, but the lands are designated as protected. So we have to find ways to ensure that we're not only passing the laws, but we actually have the ownership of the lands that are declared as protected but privately held. So we do intend to develop, as I've said, new policy and new strategies to address this situation. And there are several ways in which this could be done. We could give several incentives for owners to develop the land in accordance with the protected area. We could have partnerships with them where we jointly develop the land in keeping with the protected status of the land. Or we could acquire the land depending on the nature of the protection and how we consider this as a valuable piece of land to protect. So this new strategy, or we could swap. We could engage in a swap. We could find other lands that are suitable for the objectives of the private owner and swap it with the protected lands that they have. And I think that this is a more enlightened way of protecting the environment, whilst at the same time ensuring that our economy can grow by ensuring that persons who own property can get the full value of the ownership of property. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to endorse this initiative. I want to congratulate the minister. He's doing a wonderful job. He's being a very good advocate for the environment and speaking on issues of climate change and urban renewal. And I'm looking forward to planting my few trees here, and I will come back quietly and privately and assist the principal in reaching that 250 trees. It was 240, 250 now.